I hope you're all doing really great. I'm delighted to see you here at the Virtual Global Learning What Do You Think session that we're doing to wrap up the week-long study abroad fair that we've been working at. My name is John Sunnigard, and I'm the Associate Provost for Global Learning and International Affairs at Western Kentucky. I just want to say a little bit about myself, just so, because I haven't met many of you. So you have an idea of who I am, and then I'm going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves. But I've been involved in study abroad since 1991, so it's getting to be quite a long time. And in a variety of different functions, from admissions and financial aid to directing a study abroad program for 5 years in the UK. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Morocco. I've lived outside the United States in several countries, Japan, Belgium, Morocco, the UK. And I've been very committed to study abroad, throughout my career. To be very honest, I didn't think that I'd ever be having a conversation like the one that we're having now, but I'm really excited about it. I think that this is going to blow open a lot of doors that we'd never thought were there before. And so I think it's a really great opportunity to talk about virtual global learning. But I'd like to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves as well. So I'm going to start out with Katie Bush. Katie, hi.
Hello. So hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. This is a conversation we're really excited to have because, like John mentioned, this is new for us at Western. It's new for a lot of universities. So we just really want to know what you would want out of an experience that could be virtual and have global learning with it. So I work on faculty-led programs and also advise students for Oceania and our domestic programs. So thank you again for being here with us.
Great, thank you, Katie. Catherine.
Hey everyone, I'm Catherine Hale, one of the study abroad advisors here at WKU, and I also work with incoming exchange students and some international students as well. And we're excited to develop something new with virtual global learning. And we hope it'll become an option going forward, not to replace study abroad, but to offer something different and new to help students be able to learn about global issues and other countries without having to leave Bowling Green. So, thanks for joining.
Great, thank you, Catherine. Yeah, just a couple of ground rules here and a couple sort of housekeeping things that I want to make sure that all of you understand. First of all, there's going to be a link that we're going to share at the end of the session. Please fill it out because, that gives you an opportunity to come into our office and get a t-shirt. Everyone who participates will be getting a study abroad t-shirt from us. So we don't want you to lose that opportunity to enhance your wardrobe. The second thing is, in the title, it says you, and it's really, really important. We don't have all the answers here. We have a lot of ideas, but by no means do we have all the answers here. And this is something that is very new. It's really exciting, as Catherine said. The goal isn't to replace hopping on a plane and going to another country to study. The goal is to add to our portfolio, particularly in a time when we don't have the option of hopping on a plane and going to another country. We don't want any WKU student to be denied the opportunity to have a global engagement experience, at least one, if not multiple, during their undergraduate career. And I think there's some really, really wonderful opportunities that come out of doing global learning. So I'm going to turn things over right now to Catherine, and she's going to work through another little word cloud with you. So please participate.
All right, so we hope that you'll share your honest feedback with us today, and we're going to start off with a poll through something called Poll Everywhere, and you can join either on a browser by putting in pollev.com/studyabroad, or you can text WKU Abroad to the number 37607 to join the poll. So just to warm us up, we'd like to know, when you hear the term virtual global learning, what do you think? Like, what's your initial reaction before we share any information about what we're thinking in terms of virtual global learning? You know, possibly you've been to sessions this week where you've learned of virtual programs already, and maybe that's kind of formed your idea. But please join the poll and just be honest. It can be positive, negative, it can be just any thoughts you have, like what comes to mind when you think of virtual global learning or virtual programs. Love that. We suspected there would be something like that. Endless Zoom. Waste time, meetings. So we have some negative feelings about it so far. Can be a phrase, a word. You could have a question maybe. Convenient, I like that, something positive. Does anyone want to share out loud, like elaborate on what you put in the word cloud? Feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to talk. We hope this will be a conversation, but we're also going to share some information with you about how virtual study abroad and virtual programs and virtual exchange is kind of developing now with COVID. It's not a totally brand new concept. It's just something that we're focusing on more now because travel is much more difficult currently. Like flexible, kind of goes along with convenient. Outreach, yeah, I like that. Reaching out to all aspects of the globe, being able to communicate with people all over, learn about them without necessarily traveling to their countries. New opportunity. So it looks like all of the responses you all have sent in are unique. Usually if multiple people would say the same thing, there would be a larger word. But we just wanted to get your initial thoughts before we present. Foundation. Zoom, there we have a couple people who put Zoom. Traveling without traveling, maybe someone put, it's hard to see the whole phrases. Give it like half a minute, 30 more seconds if anyone else can think of something you want to put in the word cloud. All right, looks like people might be done. Thank you for sharing your initial thoughts. It's helpful.
All right, so yeah, a lot of what we saw there was not unexpected, especially with Zoom. I know all of you are stuck in so many Zoom sessions from last spring and then this fall as well. So next we just kind of want to move into, like, what does the field of international education have to say about virtual global learning? So we'll start with a video from Erasmus, and it's students from Europe who have participated in virtual exchange talking about what kind of their definition of it is after.
A synonym of fantasy, the opportunity to talk and interact with different people from different backgrounds, different countries, different places, different continents.
An encounter between two people, or in our case, two groups that work together
and can work together thanks to technology.
Virtual exchange is a portal that allows you to connect with different people from different countries around the world to tell your opinion about specific topics, to listen to another opinion, another views also, to share your culture and to know about other cultures in the world.
It's being abroad without being abroad. It's staying in your house and having the opportunity to know new people.
Stay at home and in the same moment you can talk with different people from different countries and with different perspectives. You can share your perspective about a topic and it's very cool.
Thank you, Savannah. If we can go back one more. Okay, so that's kind of like some student experiences with virtual global learning. So some other phrases you might hear to describe it are virtual exchange, collaborative online learning, which is usually shortened to COIL, or international at home. So when we kind of think about how is virtual global learning defined in the field, it's dialogue-based, facilitated dialogue. It's collaborations between students in different countries, different locations. It's focused on the development of intercultural understanding with the aim to be accessible to all students, affordable, and also sustainable. So the idea is that the connections that are created should be more than just a one-off experience. So just some like general models for how virtual global learning could look on WKU's campus or in your own experience with global learning while you're here at WKU. It could be a course embedded experience. So a normal course that you might take in the fall or spring has kind of these virtual collaborations embedded into it. It could be a faculty-led program. So if you're not familiar, those are our programs that we normally offer on site that are led by a faculty member. They're short-term, winter and summer. It could be an experience that way that is either fully virtual or has on-site and virtual components. It could be a remote global internship. Those have, since COVID, have started to become more popular, and we'll watch just a short video on that in a moment. It could be a language learning program. So it's a great way to increase your experience with languages and actually work with other students who are speaking the language you're trying to learn. Something that is not new but is becoming more relevant is digital badging. So participating in an experience like this could lead to earning a badge in intercultural competence or cross-cultural communication that you can actually put on your LinkedIn account or your resume or things like that. It can be an event, a workshop, a presentation, or a virtual conference. Or it could be something that's not involved in a class, that's kind of extracurricular, but where you're working on a project in a global team. So think of like coding or engineering projects, things like that. Savannah, could you show us the video for the remote global internships, please? So this is just one example of what a global internship could look like.
An investment in your future. Set yourself apart from your peers. An international internship is an investment in your future. Set yourself apart from your peers right from home through USAC's Global Perspectives Virtual Internships program. During a virtual internship, you'll work with an international company to gain valuable career experience and expand your network in your chosen field. While you could participate in an internship in the US, going global with USAC means you'll be gaining international experience where you'll interact with, learn, and be a part of a different culture. The opportunity to work with international professionals in your field will expose you to industry trends, different perspectives, and global issues that you likely wouldn't experience at home, shaping you into a global citizen in and out of the office. USAC's virtual internships are flexible and unique, They offer a valuable experience for nearly every student and professional. Whether you're looking to complete an internship required for your major, advance your language skills, or are a lifelong learner looking to gain international experience, a virtual internship will provide you with a wide network of professionals for future job and personal opportunities, the ability to communicate across different environments and cultures, flexibility, independence, and the skills to work in a remote environment. During your internship, you'll complete a minimum of 120 work hours remotely. You'll work during US working hours for an internationally based company. USAC offers exciting virtual internships in many career fields. If you don't see your field of interest, contact USAC for additional internship options. The Overseas USAC Resident Director, who resides in the internship location, and your internship placement supervisor will be your main contacts for support and questions. Your placement supervisor will also introduce you to your internship organization, its mission, and most importantly, the work they do. All internships include a 15-hour seminar in addition to the placement hours that will help you navigate your internship experience and the cross-cultural landscape of the workplace. To secure a virtual internship with USAC, take the following steps. Apply through the USAC website at usac.edu/apply. Complete a pre-screening questionnaire. And participate in an interview with a USAC enrollment coordinator to determine the best fit to meet your goals. You can learn more about the virtual internship opportunities and apply today on the USAC website. An international internship is an investment.
Okay, thank you. So the nice thing about the internships, and you don't just have to do one through USAC, they just had a nice video for it, but a lot of the providers we work with offer these. They can be done during your normal semester or winter, summer, and I think they're gonna be around for a while. And then there's just one other video I would like to show, and that's just a quick example of what a language learning program could look like.
Hola, my name is Lucia and I will be the instructor for the Advanced Spanish Language course that CIE will run online this summer for 3 credits. I am a specialist in Spanish language acquisition and I just finalized my master's degree in creative writing. So this course is for students who have a solid background in Spanish and that wish to consolidate their communicative skills in all kinds of interactions. We will address a variety of Latin American issues such as migration and development, indigenous communities and civil rights, literature and feminist movements. The course aims to help students express their point of view on abstract subjects in oral and written productions in the form of blogs, podcasts, and video productions. Join us in the session that best suits you.
Okay, perfect. So those are just meant to be kind of a mini introduction to some kind of the models of global learning virtually. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So when we were putting this kind of conversation together, we thought it might be helpful to do some more specific examples. So some of these we kind of poached from other universities that are working on them. And then some we just made up as what could be a possibility. So for this example, if you could imagine being enrolled in a virtual course, so it'd be web-based, and imagine that it's in the winter term, the topic intercultural communication through food, and then you would get to involve in a lot of synchronous activities. So people who are on site in Barcelona would host a workshop on the culture of food in Spain. You would get to have discussions with local experts on different topics such as the food industry there, the economics of food in Spain, and specifically Barcelona. Actually get to attend a live cooking class where you're provided with a list of ingredients that you need and you can actually cook along with the person in Barcelona making the meal. Getting to go on a guided tour of different neighborhoods within a location, such in Barcelona, the Gothic neighborhood. Also doing a market tour. So Barcelona is famous for a lot of its marketplaces. Yes, as John put in the chat, learn how to make paella. That would be the great one to do for the live cooking class. And then also a lot of cultural sites in different locations, including Barcelona, have virtual tours that can be pretty interactive, so such as the Dali Museum, which would include you working with students in the class, but then also local students on site and kind of doing a scavenger hunt. So that's just one example of what would be a full virtual experience. If you could go to the next slide, please. So another example of something that could happen with a faculty-led program is a hybrid version. So you have some virtual components and then some on-site components. So for this example, I built it based on a civil engineering course that takes place in the summer, and the location would be Kenya. So prior to traveling on site, you would get to interact with Kenyan students and faculty, possibly from the University of Nairobi, for lectures with each other, for discussions and cultural sharing. You would be put into mixed teams, so Kenyan students and US students, to develop a solution to some hypothetical engineering problem. You would be able to talk to the Kenyan students about what do I expect when I'm actually in Kenya. Then when you go to Kenya, you would meet the students and the faculty on site, tour their university, go to different site visits within Kenya for the engineering industry. And then when you got back, you would continue collaborating with those students and that faculty to kind of put together a final project. So that's an example of what a hybrid virtual program could look like. And then we have one more example. So this would be a regular semester course embedded class. So you could take it in the fall term, potentially colonnade. So for this one, we chose Political Science 260, which is Intro to Comparative Politics. It would be an in-person class, so face-to-face. So you wouldn't be just sitting on Zoom all the time. But what you would do is it could be divided into 3 different segments, and you would partner with a university on 3 different continents for the segments. So think South America, Africa, and Europe. And in those, you would hold joint sessions, you would collaborate with the students on different projects. You could have cross-cultural debate teams, and share cultural aspects of life. And also those students could help you do virtual site visits. So that's kind of what we would envision as what a virtual exchange course embedded class could look like. So now that we've kind of given a little short overview of what the field says virtual global learning is, we're going to move into some more polls. So these are multiple choice, and you can answer more than once. So if you want to choose A, B, and C, you would just do A, comma, B, comma, C when you text that in. So please go ahead and respond. It's the same information as before. So either on your browser, polev.com/WKU abroad, or texting WKU abroad to 37607. Awesome. Thank you, guys. I love seeing that collaborating with foreign students seems to be the most popular choice. And I would say that's what we all consider at the heart of virtual opportunities, is that the student-to-student interaction. It's not just a professor coming in and lecturing to you and then leaving. We really want you to be able to have experience working with other students. And I think the global teams has a lot of potential as well. I think I was at a conference recently, and I believe it's the World Economic Forum put that, like, as much as connected as we think we are, they estimate that really only 46% of the world is connected globally, but that within 10 years, they expect it to jump up to like 90%. So if you can just imagine like what it is now compared to that, and they also think that COVID has really increased that, so it could probably happen in less than 10 years. So that's going to be a really important skill to have. Okay, so we'll just give a couple more seconds for this, and this is kind of based on the educational opportunities that you could have in one of these experiences. Does anybody want to put in the chat or speak out loud about why they chose the option that they did? I'm a huge introvert, so believe me, I get it. But yeah, don't be shy.
I can say something real quick.
Yeah, please.
So I actually chose working on global project teams. I'm just very much a big fan of like team projects and stuff. I've done a lot of that like in random events I've gone to. And I think just working on that with other students, like I kind of like a mix of B and C, you know, I just thought that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And I'll say to everybody, so I know that there's like two camps when it comes to group projects in school, right? Some people love it, some people hate it. They don't go away when you go to the real world. You always have them. So definitely an awesome choice. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Thank you, Amelia.
Well, I will. I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't text, but I will choose B, collaborating with foreign students. Well, because I think I liked that interaction within my peers. I think I learned a lot about a culture from my peers. So that was something that attracted me. Just sharing and exchanging ideas, activities with foreign students.
Awesome. Thank you. And do you, Amelia, because you're here as an international student, do you see this being possible virtually? Do you think it could work?
I believe yes. Even though probably we won't exchange activity like physically, like I think that exchanging like talking virtually, maybe there are some kind of activities that can be done virtually. Um, Elaborate some ideas to activities to do virtually. Those will help for the to exchange, to collaborate with other students. It's harder, but I think it is possible.
Thank you. All right. I'll give you one more chance. Does anybody have anything else they want to say before we move on to the next slide?
I will just say that all of these things listed here don't just have to happen on Zoom, because there are so many different ways you can communicate virtually. It doesn't necessarily mean everyone's going to be on their own computer or device connected all at once with all these little boxes. It could be a situation where you're in a classroom with the other students in your class and you're like connecting via video to a whole nother class and having a whole like discussion with other students. Or it could be something where it's like asynchronous, where you're or chatting, or using a platform to have discussions that may not be happening in the moment. So just wanted to point that out, that this
Yes.
the setup with Zoom may not be the only way that these kind of collaborations and learning can happen in the future.
Yeah, the biggest thing that's stressed with virtual international opportunities is that what you want out of the experience comes first, and then you figure out what technology fits that the best. So Zoom is not always going to be the answer. So I appreciate that, Catherine. All right, so let's move to the next poll, please.
All right. So what kind of cultural opportunities would most attract you to a virtual global learning experience? Developing intercultural understanding, general knowledge, cultural knowledge about a location or region, virtual site visits, language, learning about food. I'm always interested in learning about food. Cool. I really appreciate the language practice. Those of you who filled that out, do you mind saying either out loud or in the chat what language you're studying or interested in studying?
I'm studying Chinese and Spanish.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, I see the Chinese characters in your name. That's awesome.
Yeah, we got assigned a Chinese name in class, so that's mine.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I have studied two languages that were not taught at my university. I was a French major as an undergraduate that were not taught at my university, Arabic and Japanese. Oh, Sugoi. Oh, Jaden, good to see you again.
Hello, good to see you. I was going to say, I really appreciate the language practice too, because at our university, at Western, there's not a whole lot of language resources for Japanese. So I've already finished my classes and then I went to Japan and now it's kind of like, what's next? There's not really a whole lot unless you can do self-study. And for me, I need that structure because I'm already such a busy person. So having that opportunity, I think would be really, really great.
Cool, great. Well, and I feel like it opens up so many other languages, beyond what we're able to teach or in areas that we're not able to teach in, because there's some, language, like let's just take Arabic, for example. There's Arabic for health, Arabic for business, all those things. We don't always have the ability to deliver courses in those highly specific areas that people want the language in order to pursue their professional goals. So how about cultural virtual site visits? What kinds of things would you like to explore there? So like, I am a huge fan and a deeply saddened fan of Anthony Bourdain, just because, the depth that he goes into things, the way that he explores culture through food, and also that he doesn't hang out in like the most expensive restaurants, even though he knows the best chefs on the planet. He hangs out in real people's houses and food and, street markets and stuff like that. I love that kind of thing. What are some of the things that you'd like to get out of that? Is it along those lines, sort of the Anthony Bourdain? Is it along the sort of National Geographic lines, or is it maybe more specific to, like different neighborhoods of a city or something like that?
I know for me, I always like to watch the kind of day in the life of a local type videos to kind of find out where do the locals go, how do the locals see their city, versus the general tourist areas.
Yeah, something I know that is going to be incorporated into that Barcelona program that Katie put up there. That's drawn off of a program that is a normal faculty-led program that actually it's my wife who teaches it. She's been doing it for like 9 years now. But a real important part of that is visits to markets. And so the guy who takes the students to the markets is going to be the one who's leading people through markets. So, what different kinds of fruits and vegetables and spices and meats and everything else are, but then also where they come from, how they fit into the culture, how to choose good ones, bad ones, and then how to prepare them, how to bring them home, all that good stuff. So there's a lot of really practical, very, very powerful intercultural stuff that goes on in that. How about intercultural understanding? Who chose that one? What are some ways that you'd like to, explore better understanding at, sort of the personal level, or more at like kind of the institutional level, or through communication? Amelia?
Well, I think in a personal level it's very interesting because you get to know the different people, their beliefs, values, religion, So I think it's very interesting because you learn a lot from a person, like when you exchange um, communication with people from different countries. So I think that's something that I really like.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you. Anyone else?
I feel like for everybody who wants to learn a language, that the whole cross-cultural understanding is important just to learn the language itself. So having those two together, I feel like is really important to grow.
Absolutely. They're two peas in a pod. You can't just have language, and you can't have culture without the language. Because there's so many things that, there'll be a word for in Chinese, but that we haven't got a word for in English. So we have to work our way around to describe it and everything else. And that piece is really, really important.
Not
I
to
totally
mention
agree.
the idioms and turns
Mhm.
of phrase that each culture has.
Yeah, absolutely. I, had a French major as an undergraduate. I did very well. I couldn't afford to study abroad when I was an undergraduate. And then after I graduated, I traveled, I sold all my stuff, my car and everything, traveled to Europe. And I got to France and I realized, boy, I barely speak French at all. I could do poetry and plays and things like that, but I did not know how to communicate with somebody on the streets of Paris in a reasonable way. That ended after 2 months. Cool. Any other thoughts on that, on cultural opportunities that you'd like to explore, things that we haven't listed here? All right. Well, then let's move on. Catherine, you want to pick this one up?
Yes. So of these other aspects of virtual global learning, which ones do you all find most attractive? The ease of accessibility, just being able to do it from anywhere, affordability, because obviously it would be a lot lower cost than programs that require traveling, flexibility, and then also just being able to participate in multiple experiences. Oh, it's equally divided right now. So affordability is kind of winning out. That's not surprising. Of course, traveling is exciting. And that's probably what a lot of where the negative reaction comes from. Students personally love traveling, but the great advantage of virtual learning is that you don't have to travel, so it makes it much less expensive. So I see that B and D are equal. Yeah, I mean, with the affordability and the flexibility, if we offer a lot of these opportunities, that means you all can participate multiple times and you can study abroad, study away, do virtual global learning. And it's just multiple ways that you can gain global skills to kind of build up your skill set for applying for jobs or whatever you do next after graduating from WKU. Does anyone want to comment on any of these aspects? Anything you find especially attractive? All right, guess we can move on.
I have a quick follow-up question, and maybe somebody will bite on it. So for those of you who chose the ability to participate in multiple global learning activities, and this is probably a question more for those who are in their sophomore year or later, do you find that currently at WKU, outside of actually studying abroad, do you get a lot of opportunities to have global learning experiences in your normal classes that you take? And if not, would you like to see more, or do you think that you actually already do get a lot of global perspectives in your classes? this is something we've just kind of been curious about as well. You can put in the chat too. Jaden or Katie, do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know you guys are towards the middle or end of your career here at Western.
I would say, like, kind of thinking about my experiences, I wouldn't necessarily, and I study like international affairs too, so it's like you do kind of, I mean, there's definitely an international aspect to it, but so much of looking at the perspective of how the other people's are perceiving, I don't think you get as much as that. I think, you know, Western had some speaker series at some points, and I think those were very, very good at kind of engaging other perspectives, international perspectives, but, you know, kind of with Corona, we're not able to do that as much. So I think if you're learning about like a concept in class, you know, about like, you know, for example, going back to the comparative politics example, like you're learning about kind of political systems of other, you know, nations, I think it would be interesting to see the perspective of how other people within that, you know, perceive it. I don't think that's something that we really get head on, because we're mostly worried about theories and concepts, not so much perspectives.
Awesome, thank you.
Savannah, you can move it on to the next. So after everything we've kind of shared about what virtual global learning can look like, all the possibilities, what concerns do you all have? And this is another word cloud, so you can put in a word, a phrase, a question, whatever you're thinking at this point that might prevent you or make you not want to do virtual global learning. We're just trying to get everyone's student opinions so that we can make sure to offer the most appealing and interesting global learning experiences through virtual formats. No motivation. Being on Zoom constantly probably and in this COVID situation makes you not very excited, maybe. Schedule conflicts. Do you want to share what you mean by schedule conflicts? Whoever put that in? Just with like synchronous meeting times?
Yeah, I was more thinking with that and taking both the virtual global stuff and classes here, if at all possible kind of stuff, just trying to maximize what I could get out of it. But if there's scheduling conflicts, that lessens that effect.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, ideally, we'd love virtual exchange to be part of regular classes you'd have to take anyway. And then with faculty-led opportunities, we're considering working with faculty on developing that. Those often take place in summer and winter. So hopefully that wouldn't interfere too much, but we realize also a lot of students work in the summer or have other opportunities they're doing. So that definitely could be an issue. Technology issues, yeah, that's a big concern. Making sure you have access and access to the right platforms, that you're not having internet issues. Anything else you all can think of? Any other reasons that you might not want to participate? All right, you all are very shy and quiet today. A lot of you have been in these Zoom sessions, want to be at the location. Yeah, personally, what appeals to me the most about the models that Katie was sharing earlier was the hybrid, where you could do a lot of your course in the US so that you don't have to take time off of work or have schedule conflicts with a lot of the course, but then you still get to go on site maybe for a week or two and still experience the culture. Not living the whole experience of knowing a culture, yeah. Yes, there are definitely limitations with virtually interacting with people or having virtual site visits. So I definitely can see that one.
Yeah, I just want to kind of pick up on that idea of limitations and sort of compromises, because I think no matter what, we have different compromises that we're making, and oftentimes we're so accustomed to it that we don't even realize that we're making compromises. And so I mean, I think language instruction is one of those things. Like teaching art, it used to kill me when I was directing this program in London, and we had a phenomenal art history course. Well, the art history course took place in the museums throughout London, and most of which are free, and they have extraordinary they have extraordinary collections, whereas you take an art course and you have it in your book and it's maybe 3 inches by 2 inches or something like that, or it's projected up on a screen in a dark room and half the class is sleeping, or something like that. But what always got me was the American professors who would validate the curriculum would say, well, you're not doing enough of this and that. And I just thought, that's because you have to do all that extra work to fill in for what, students can't do when they're abroad. But I think, the virtual piece opens up a lot of doors that we don't always necessarily think of. And these are the kinds of things that we want to get from you. What sort of things, like if you could have more constant practice in the language, for example, with a native speaker who is not your instructor, someone your own age, different gender. I know in Japanese, for example, gender really matters in the language. Age really matters in the language. And, so different aspects like that we might be able to bring in that you wouldn't be able to get. I mean, the thing about study abroad is, we are very generous in our scholarships, but yet it's still very expensive to go abroad. You have to eat, you have to buy a plane ticket, you have all that other stuff that's going on. Whereas if you could have more experiences and a study abroad, but more experiences internationally, how might that help your education? Because at the end of the day, what we really care about is your education. What you're learning through your WKU experience. That's what we really, really, really care about. So, that's why I think, kind of expanding, our thought processes on some of those different compromises that we have to make, whether it's in study abroad, duration, where you're living, that sort of thing, whether it's in a virtual environment, but, please share your thoughts on those.
And I would just say some of the nice things about what you put as concerns, so not living the whole experience or want to be at the location, is that the nice thing about these is they're not meant to be a replacement for study abroad. So you can do them in addition to, a program where you would be physically going to a location. So those are definitely valid concerns if you had to choose between the two. But our idea is that outside of COVID, you won't have to choose between the two. You'll be able to do both.
Yeah, we are not going to allow anything to take study abroad away from WKU, including COVID. All right. So, kind of following up on Catherine's, what would you like to learn during a virtual global learning experience? Major specific, work-based experience, this kind of goes back to what Aisha was talking about. Skill building in different cultures, general cultural knowledge, language, of course, project-based. Again, back to what Aisha was talking about. I'm sorry, I meant to say Ashira, excuse me. Cool. Yeah, language learning is a biggie. I think there's so much promise, so much opportunity with language learning that, will be I'm hoping that we're going to be able to really take advantage of here. So major topics. If you don't mind, either in the chat or much better, you know, talking. What's your major, and what aspect of that would you like to learn through, possibly through virtual global learning? So, you know, like I mentioned, I was French, international relations, and then I have an MBA in international business. So, you know, obviously a lot of international stuff going on in my academic career. There's a lot of stuff that I wish that I would have been able to do either in this kind of a format or studying abroad. So what sort of those things would you know, who's a business major? Who's, I know that Betsy's a Chinese major, right?
Chinese and Spanish, yeah.
Chinese and Spanish, right, cool. Jaden, you're international relations?
Yes, international affairs, political science, and I'm also studying master's in public administration.
Awesome, awesome. No ambition there. Katie, how about you?
I'm doing a major in public relations in Spanish.
Awesome. Diamond, we haven't heard from you. Do you mind if I ask you? Cool, Ashira. And Patrice. So marketing and dietetics and nutrition. Yeah, absolutely, cool. Emily? Or Gwen?
Hi. I have a major in biology and Spanish.
Cool. Which one would you want to do virtually, the biology or Spanish, or both?
I would prefer to do the Spanish one, just
Sure.
because I think it will be easier.
Yeah. Cool. Gwynnie?
I'm a fashion merchandising major.
Oh, yeah. Well, fashion is so global. And like Katie pointed out in the chat, you know, project teams, man, that's what you do in marketing, and especially, you know, like fashion merchandising, tech, they're totally global. So you're constantly meeting with people in different cultures, and this is how you're going to be doing it over, you know, Zoom or something.
Yeah.
Ashley, how about you?
I'm going into special education / early childhood. So my perspective is like going to see like the different cultures, just to have a more understanding of like the kids. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, we imported a wonderful early childhood educational curriculum from Italy. You know, Montessori, which has been a part of American education for quite some time. And, you know, it's really valuable learning how different people are educating, you know, kids and working with special needs people and that kind of thing. Yeah, that's great. Cool. Cool. All right. Any other thoughts or comments? I had to call you guys out. All right. So how many of you have participated? I'm sure many of you participated in the virtual study abroad fair. Have you learned about other virtual programs, and what kinds of things were interesting or like, that's not going to work for me? You know, as you were listening and seeing and hearing about these things?
Well, one thing I actually did as a freshman, I don't think it's still around, but I did something called Celia Connects. And so essentially what that was is it was like the goal was to connect students from predominantly Western societies with those from predominantly Middle Eastern societies. So, it was nice to kind of see like you had a bunch of students across the US, you had countries from, parts of the Middle East, like Northern Africa region. And we talked a lot about like aspects of like identity, societal problems. And it was really interesting. And I really enjoyed that aspect just because it was really like, I think, inclusive and like I still have a few of those connections, so that was really nice. But I will say like that one thing is concerning is like when you're trying to get a bunch of students like that and trying to work with the different time zones can be difficult. So I had to wake up at like 6 a.m. That part I didn't enjoy, but the experience as a whole was definitely worth it.
Yeah, the global time zones are really a challenge, but you do get some insights into, is Saul the one who organized that in political science?
Dr. Yatsuport. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's great because we've talked about, kind of bringing that back as, within this context as well as Roger
Murphy.
Murphy, Dr. Murphy.
Yeah, sorry. He's also done some of that work, and we've talked about kind of bringing more of this on board, which would be great. But I think especially in the Middle East, there's so many, and China, there's so many places where we think we understand, and then we hear things from different aspects of the media, but we really, really, really don't understand what's going on. And I think it's really important. Now I'm going to sound like an old person, but for young people, for students, to get to know what each other is experiencing, going through, and seeing, how they see the world. That's super important. I know, I know that Gabby's getting a lot out of that, from her experience here in the United States, for example. What other thoughts on that?
Yeah, just any other programs you've heard about that have kind of piqued your interest?
I have been when I came here, I came with the ESLI program that the university used to have in here. And it was such a special thing because it was my first time and sharing with the students, not from United States especially, but from other countries that didn't know English that well. So I could like feel the accent in all the things they were saying. And that was incredible for me because we were talking the same language, but it seems like a little bit special in each person because of the accent. And I consider, and we had these teamworks for the classes and everything, but I consider that we can still do that if we have the Zoom classes with the students from different countries, and even will be easier to reach to students from different countries in this way because it's everything recording or doing these Zoom classes. So I think that's a really good opportunity that we have, that now everything is being online and recorded and with Zoom to reach to more people. And yes, that's one of the things I have living here, like the experience. And in classes, we also could share the culture. We did presentations, speeches about some things from our country, from our culture. So I think we can have like also that cultural sharing, not just learning English or learning French or Spanish, but sharing about our cultures.
Thank you, Gabby.
So while you're kind of thinking about that, also if you can kind of think about what would work best for you in terms of when you think about like courses offered through WKU that have these virtual components. And you can either put this in the chat or feel free to speak. But just thinking about, would you prefer to take classes like that in the winter or summer terms? Do you think it works better as a full semester length class? Are you interested in more bi-term options? Do you like the idea of fully virtual or face-to-face with virtual components? Like we've mentioned, the hybrid option, or just having a few activities kind of scattered throughout the course. So those are all things we'd love to hear from you about what you would want to see. So if you have thought about it already and you think or you're interested, feel free to jump in or put in the chat, but also you can always reach out to us later to let us know kind of what works best for you.
If I can say something.
Yeah.
I remember that for a English communication class, so I had that teacher before, and she was in a cultural class, something like that. And she asked me to give a speech about Peruvian culture in the class. So I went to the class. I dressed up with the costume of Peru, one traditional costume, and I gave the speech. And I told them things that for them were kind of really weird. For example, eating guinea pigs, the hamster, that it's the big hamster. That was something like all the class was, ah, you do that, and then it was a lot of fun. But also at the end of the speech, they feel this confidence of, probably because it was another student, just like all the students that were there trying this new experience in United States. So probably that's why they had that confidence. So if we can reach students that are in other countries, maybe alumni that can give also a speech about their culture, and because they were in our same situation, we will feel more comfortable of talking with them or asking them things also. So going with that idea, having that opportunity of being in the class in that moment, and the students could ask all the things they didn't understand or they were more curious about in that moment, like after the speech finished. So it was easier to communicate, and I think we can still do that through Zoom if we are in a class and they are just watching the Zoom, or if it's like in this way. And so in that moment they can ask or things like that. So it will be like a session, for example, per week, something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that idea. And that could be done in a class, but also outside of a class. Is just kind of a series that WKU students can participate in. That's great.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And that, again, bringing people together, that's what it's all about. So one thing that, Katie is going to be taking the lead, Katie Bush, on our virtual global learning initiative. So the things that we've talked about here, we're going to keep moving with this, and we're going to do a lot with it. But, I'm really adamant. This is why I wanted to have this as more of a conversation and to get your feedback, that when we design these things, we work with faculty, of course, because, they're the content experts and so forth. But that we also are working really closely with students because, at the end of the day, it's your education, and we want to make sure that you're getting what you want and what you need out of your education. And this is, I think, a really dramatic opportunity that we have to put some of these things together. And so, we really encourage you to participate. And so I'm going to kind of put Katie on the spot here. And just to say that if anyone wants to work with Katie to help set this up, we will welcome that. We'd really appreciate it. And I don't know how often, you have the opportunity to help shape your education and the education of students after you, but this is one opportunity that you have to do that. And I really hope that you'll join us on that, because I'm super excited about what this represents.
Yes, and I put my email in the chat, so feel free to send me an email if you want to discuss this further or just anything with it. And you can find my information on our website as well, but you can also just email our generalstudy.abroad@wku.edu. Something John had said when we were preparing for this session yesterday was, how awesome would it be if we could have every WKU student participate in some sort of global learning activity every year that they're at Western. And so just, to be a part of that and to get that rolling would be awesome. So definitely, if you have any interest at all, just please reach out to me.
I have a question about the virtual learning. Would it be like, imagine if you wanted to take a language course, would it be Western, like setting up those classes, or would it be more like you apply through third-party programs like USAC or AIFS, something like that? And like, how involved would Western be in that?
So I think that our ultimate goal would be that the classes offered at Western would have a lot of those components to them. Now that would of course be for the languages that are offered here at WKU. For languages that aren't currently, that would be like through the providers for that. But yeah, we would definitely want to incorporate more of this just across the WKU courses so that you would be WKU credit, fit into your normal schedule, no problem.
Yeah, and Katie, that's a really great question, because, and I had a conversation with the interim chair of modern languages, Alex Poole, about just this. On the one hand, students are going to want to take courses for credit, right? That counts toward their degree. And of course, WK is awarding that degree, so we want to make sure that, the courses are taught at a certain standard. That is absolutely critical. But there are a lot of really great universities. There are a lot of great language schools out there, that are teaching languages at a very high level. And so we'll have to be working on some way of, vetting those to ensure that, if you're paying money and you want it to count toward your WKU degree, that you're walking away with something of really good quality, and again, I think this is a place where student voices can be really heard, because people are going to be thinking in their traditional, okay, well, we have Spanish, we have Chinese, we have Arabic, we have, a little bit of German, a little bit of French, a little bit of Japanese, but, how do we, if you want to do, say, Korean or Swahili or Tagalog, or Hindi, Hindi, 700 million people speak Hindi and we don't teach it. So, if you want to learn one of those other languages, we will need to have a mechanism for incorporating that into the degree. But if there's student demand, people are going to pay attention. So this is a chance to kind of get people thinking outside the box. And I'd really encourage that. Mm-hmm.
Katie, I just wanted to say, since I know you're a Spanish major, what I think would be really cool is if Spanish courses here had some virtual exchange components where like the class could interact with students in Ecuador at our exchange partner or in Spain. And that's what I would like as far as being offered at WKU versus being taught abroad, because we have a whole Spanish major here. There would be some really cool opportunities to engage with students in other countries and get more practice with peers that speak the language as a native speaker. And we have people like Gabby on campus that are fluent in Spanish, and Amelia. She had to leave the meeting, I think, but that would be really cool to engage even in person. So just thinking, we're just trying to think outside the box and how students can gain more global experiences while being here at WKU and not just having to do that only on study abroad.
I have another question kind of related to that. So I guess one, I'm like concerned about the logistics of how is that going to be charged? Let's say you're already taking a full course load here at Western and you want to take an additional language course. How is that going to be charged to you? And second, for me, like any credit I get for Japanese is just mute at this point. It doesn't matter. And so like how, that's kind of upsetting. Like I would like to see at least a certificate or something. I think that would be really nice. But, even then it's like, what what is the benefit of doing that, of taking these credits if they're not going to transfer? I'm just doing it for myself, but I'm just worried kind of like the logistical side of things.
Yeah, Jaden, those are really great questions. And we're still trying to work that out, because this is like totally different. This isn't you know, about, I mean, yes, there's a component of an exchange, but it's very different from an exchange. There's a component of working with a third-party provider, you know, but it's different from working with a third-party provider. You know, so we're trying to figure out, you know, how we can do that in terms of, you know, like billing and stuff like that. And then also like a certificate, that's really cool, right? So, you know, if we have like a language or, you know, an area of a language that, you know, like health Spanish. I mean, to me, health Spanish is absolutely vital, right? There are many other, because learning the specific vocabulary and the nuances of the use of that vocabulary and the cultural differences in communicating in Spanish between, you know, Spain and Guatemala and things like that, you know, they're enormous and they have impact right here, you know, in Bowling Green. But, you know, to be able to do something, you know, badging or micro credentials like certificates or things like that, if, you know, again, if there's a demand, right? So you're taking Japanese because you really want to learn Japanese language. You want that to be a part, but we don't really have a way of saying, hey, you know, Jaden has a Japanese major. Well, we don't have one. But if we could say, okay, you need to take, you know, 5 courses through a foreign institution that is accredited by whatever, and you know, you pay their tuition. So like Japanese tuition for language is pretty cheap, or in other places it's very inexpensive, and maybe that's less than our tuition. If we're willing to recognize that, you know, maybe not as a part of a degree, but then you walk away with like a little merit badge that says, yeah, you know, I have a certificate in Japanese, you know, Japanese language and culture, for example. Those are really cool things that we could do that I think, you know, would add a lot of extra value to a WKU degree. There are things that we would love to teach, you know, at some level, but we can't. We can't do everything for everyone. So then we, you know, get someone else to do it, and we accredit it, you know, so that it can go along and make you more competitive in the workplace. I mean, that at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want you to leave here with your education that you want, you know, and I think that's a cool way to do it. But it will help if, you know, there is kind of on the demand side, hey, I'm really interested in doing this. Can we do this? Can we do it virtually? Let's think about how we could do that.
Adding to that idea, I remember I was in a orientation of the university something, and I hear that there were some universities that were offering like something similar, like you want to take this course, but just this university offers it. So the university one has an affiliation or something with the other university. So you were able to be in your university, but taking like something recorded or maybe moving there or something like that for having that accreditation. And that was like in another country. I think this university was in Mexico, and accreditation was from United States. So something like that will be able with languages with all the universities with which we have connections. So maybe they can afford us, especially now that everything is like on Zoom, it will be easier for a student to get in one of those classes and have that accreditation of that person has taken that course. So you will have that course in your curriculum. And maybe for a job because I know, for example, for England, it's easier to get in the university from the college to the university if you have taken courses from England. So probably something like that. If you want a job in the future, it will be easier to get that job if you have an accreditation of a university from that country. For example, I'm not sure about the logistics and everything, but maybe that can function and help a lot to our students.
Yeah, Gabby, you know, that's a really interesting concept. I was just reading an article today about how different universities have responded around the world to COVID and instruction and so forth. And one of the things that's happening in China is that universities are sort of allowing people to take online stuff. Let's say, you know, you're in the engineering department and your mechanical engineering program doesn't have robotics, but this other universities does, you would be able to take a course in robotics and have it count in your, at your home university's curriculum, which is a really interesting way to go about that. And of course, it's totally Chinese to be, quite that collective, in the way that they're approaching it. But we have a number of exchange partners, for example. Maybe we could award, talk about having different kinds of certificates that would be awarded, from different, from our exchange partners or something like that. It's a lot of different. The more I think about this, the more things I find in my head that, that we could do that could be super cool and very innovative, and that kind of thing is one of them. And again, we'd love to have your perspective as a student for what it is that you would like to see in that kind of, brave new world of global learning.
So one thing my Spanish class has been doing, we've been using Conversify to talk with native language speakers. Sometimes it's in our language and we help them learn English. Sometimes we speak with them in Spanish and they help us learn Spanish. And I think that's great, and something like that would be great. The only problem with Conversify I found is it limits your sessions to 15 minutes. So adding something in like that has unlimited time, or just you assign your own time limitation, I feel like that would be a lot better. And I know that my class is currently having only a few of us experiment, see how Conversify works with our class. But having something like that available to all the classes would be really cool. Like, not just necessarily Spanish, but like any language class, because that would add in the components of talking with different people, native speakers, and especially for like Spanish and Japanese and various other languages that have the age and the gender differences, would add in that component too.
Yeah, that's really cool. Betsy, do you know Gabby?
Don't think we've had the pleasure of meeting yet.
Well, you know her now. Gabby, Betsy, Gabby. No, and we've got these lovely women from Peru, Amelia and Gabby, and they're really, really, really just amazing students and delightful people. So I hope at least at a minimum from this, you have an opportunity to, to get to know them a little bit. Katie, you as well, since you're a Spanish major. But, it's pretty cool. But these are the kinds of things that we want to keep exploring. And I really appreciate that, Betsy. Let us know.
Yeah,
Katie.
Oh, go ahead. Me, Katie, or other Katie?
Katie with a C.
Okay, I had another kind of question similar to what Gabby was saying, but like I've heard from some people that they wanted to take like Italian, but I don't think that's offered at Western. So if like imagine you were taking classes like virtually at the University of Torino or something, and then you ended up getting enough credits like in the language that it could be considered a major, would you, I don't know, like would you graduate from Western like with a degree or like partial credit from like this Italian university, or would it be like through Western, things like that, I guess?
And, Katie, that's a really, really great question. I know how I would structure something like that, but I don't know how it will actually kind of pan itself out. But here's one way that it could be done. So, we set it up sort of like an exchange. So you pay your Western tuition, we register you in the Italian university, and, then they register someone here. So it winds up, kind of balanced in terms of the finances. Then you get those courses, you get a transcript from the Italian university. That transcript then stays with, with us, and that follows you through WKU. So the work that you're doing, you're receiving credit for the work, toward your WKU degree, because that's really important. You're doing a lot of work. You need to get credit for it, from your WKU degree. But then also you have that Italian transcript. And I think that's important because, like Gabby was saying, let's say you wanted to do a graduate degree at an Italian university, you would be able to say, I did this at the University of Torino, for example, and here were my grades, here's my level and that sort of thing. And it would make it easier for you to get into that kind of a program, or even to work for, say, Fiat Chrysler, or, some other Italian company, if that's what your interest is. And so, having those kind of dual certifications, I think, is a really, really important piece. We don't want to just say, oh yeah, she studied Italian someplace, or you go off and do all this extra work on your own while you're a full-time student and not have it count toward your degree. So we've got to try to figure out how to, and this isn't going to be easy in a lot of cases, but in something like modern languages, that might be possible, because modern languages, I mean, there's got to be 4,000 or 5,000 of them, and why not have it do that, right? And I think, it's hard to study Italian in the United States. There aren't that many places that teach Italian. But yet it's a very rich, important language. So, like I said, Hindi, I mean, it's difficult to take Hindi in the United States. There are very few universities that teach Hindi, or Urdu, which is also, hundreds of millions of people speak Urdu. Those are important languages for us to have exposure to. And just because we have the limitations of the structures that we have right now, where you choose French or Spanish, or maybe if you're lucky, Chinese, or Arabic, we need to get away from that. So I really love what you're talking about, Katie. I think that's cool. And we're going to explore that, believe me.
And then there was one other thing. I thought, like, with the virtual learning, it would be good for things like, for example, this semester, I'm doing my work from home, like in Louisville. So I didn't really have that many options online to take the Spanish courses that I needed. So if there was like a way to keep practicing Spanish, because at this point it's more about like the practice and using it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can just go back another semester and do like the required courses that I need. But just like something that I could take online that was offered. I thought that would have been like a good situation.
Yeah, Katie, a while back, I don't know, probably April or May, I received a really interesting email from the University of Alcalá de Henares. I don't speak Spanish. In Spain. It's the Instituto Franklin. And they've been doing study abroad programs forever. They took some of their Spanish courses and put them online. So their instructors, and just like we did, right? 330 euros for a 3 credit hour course, $500, less than $500 for a three credit hour Spanish course. And they had courses like medical Spanish. They had one Spanish for social work. They had some really interesting, specific language specific courses that students could take that I know we wouldn't be able to take here. But that, again, I know students would be interested in taking, but we didn't quite have a vehicle to make that work. But I want to make sure that we get that vehicle to make that work so that you can keep doing what you want to do, or you can look at a whole portfolio of different kind of courses and say, well, I'm really interested in the fashion industry. So I want to take this Spanish for the fashion industry that talks about, seams and hemlines and whatever, vocabulary is associated with that kind of thing, so that you can get that language you need in the area that you want to work in. I think that's really important. And it's possible. We're all used to sitting staring at this screen, I mean, right now I'm in Colorado. It doesn't matter where you are. Other thoughts?
I just wanted to add, because so many of you are interested in just global learning opportunities in general, that one of kind of the goals I have is that because there are some classes on campus that are doing these things already, but then of course we want to add more, is I would love for there to be a way when you guys go onto TopNet to register for classes that you could filter by what classes have, you know, these virtual opportunities for you. There's some other universities that do that. And so, you know, I just feel like as me as a student, that I would have been interested in being able to filter and specifically choose those classes in my normal semester that have these types of components to them. So just throwing that out there, that would be a goal of mine to work on.
And, you know, if anyone wants to talk to me about this stuff, I'm very, very happy to talk with you about it. I'm really interested in this, and I'm very, very interested, as I said before several times. You know, I really want to hear your thoughts and your ideas about global learning and what you want out of your education. So I put my email address in there in the chat. Okay. Well, this has been awesome, at least from my perspective. And I want to thank you. I want to thank Katie and Catherine and Savannah, who you didn't get to see, who's in the background making all the PowerPoints work. And Diana, who's in the back room, keeping an eye on things. And especially I want to thank all of you who came and participated. You know, this is an open dialogue, and this is a chance for you to show and help lead where you want to take global learning at WKU moving forward.
Thank you all for joining and participating.
Yes, thank you all for being here on a Friday afternoon and having so many wonderful thoughts. I'm so jealous of all your youthful energy, and I say that I'm only 30, but I really appreciate everything that you guys have brought to the table today. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.